Good evening. My name is Rob Morris. I'm the president and co-founder of LOVE146, and I just want to say thank you to the performers that rock today, this amazing band. You guys, I'm going to be short so we can get back to 10,000 memes. I love, if you look on your tables, you have something from 10,000 memes and some stuff from us. I love the statement on this one card that says, less talk and more do, and that's what we're about. In total honesty, 10 years ago I didn't know anything about this issue that we call child sex slavery and exploitation. Back in 2002, I was invited along with a couple of friends to go to Southeast Asia to see firsthand. We heard a little bit about the issue. We wanted to get involved. We wanted to figure out what can we do about it. And I will never forget the first night that we were there, we hooked up with an organization made up of criminal investigators. And we became part of a criminal investigation taking place in a very specific brothel. And I remember this investigator, what they basically do is they go in undercover with undercover surveillance equipment on. They gather enough evidence in these places. When they have enough evidence, they go to local authorities, find out who's not corrupt, because there's a lot of corruption involved in this kind of thing. And when there's enough evidence, and they find people sympathetic to the cause of getting these kids out of these situations, there's a raid that takes place. These kids are rescued, they're brought into safe places, and begin a long, long road of recovery and hopefully back into their homes, if their homes were not involved in it being trafficked to begin with. Make a long story short, I'll never forget this particular night as this investigator was basically training us on how to pose as the very thing that everything in me is completely and utterly repulsed by, and basically a customer. I remember that night as we were about to go in, he said, look, if you don't think you can hold it together emotionally, please don't go into this place because we can't risk this investigation being destroyed. And you guys, I think it's really important that we put human faces to issues and causes. I think sometimes we put things into issue and cause realm, we can keep a safe distance from it. But we're talking about human beings here. And for that night, there was a cause and an issue that took on a human face. As we walked into this particular brothel, I found myself standing in a room looking through these glass windows at young children, young girls, with matching red dresses on, having even the dignity of a name stripped from them. They just had numbers pinned to their dresses. I remember looking through that window and looking at these kids, and they were watching children's cartoons on these crackling television sets. And on this side of the glass, I was standing shoulder to shoulder with what could only be described as predators who were purchasing these children for horrendous reasons. And I remember hearing that voice of the investigator going through my head in that moment saying, you know, if you don't think you can hold it together, because everything in me, as a human being, as a man, as a father, wanted to smash through that glass and get as many of those kids out of there in that moment as I could, but I had to refrain because of an ongoing investigation. Everything in me was trying to figure out how many of these guys in this room could we take out, and all of these thoughts raging through me in that moment. And the thing that so struck me was the looks in the eyes of these kids. I have 6 kids of my own. One of my daughters is here tonight, my oldest. And one of the few things that I've learned about kids is that there should be anybody on the planet that should have a light on in their eyes, that should have a sparkle, that should have life in their eyes. It should be a kid. But to look through that glass window and to see that strip from them, they were just like little robots with these robotic stares watching these television sets, just completely and utterly shut down. Except for one girl, I will never forget her face. My guess was that she was new to the brothel. She was the only one not watching the television sets. She was staring at us through the glass, and there was still a fight left in her eyes. There was still a spark there left in her eyes. I'll never forget those eyes. I'll never forget her number. Her number was 146. And so when we talk about LOVE146, the name of our organization, it reminds us that it's not about the stats and the numbers, because it can become overwhelming. You can become like the deer caught in the headlights. You know, when you talk about UNICEF estimating 1.2 million children every year are being trafficked and sold like commodities, that's too big for me, man. It's too big. So I have to think about the one, and our organization is named after that encounter with the one who represents the multitudes. And when we talk about love, we talk about protecting and defending the vulnerable and the innocent, and restoring and empowering the broken. So when you guys come together for a night like tonight and an event like this, we love to tell the kids that we work with about events like this. It blows them away. They can't figure it out. They're like, well, how do people know about us? Why would people care to pay money to come to something like this? And they can't figure it out. These are kids that have been forgotten and have lived in the shadows their whole whole lives. They've only been looked at as basically a commodity. So what you do tonight, we get to tell them about, and it's part of their recovery process. So when you're coming together tonight and funding our work, you're funding our prevention work and our aftercare. We want to eventually work our aftercare out of business. I don't want to keep building safe homes for kids that have been trafficked and sold. I want to stop the reason why we're doing that. So you guys, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart on behalf of our organization, but more importantly, on behalf of the kids that we work with, that you make a difference. And you guys, using your public platform, it's huge. Creating the awareness that this exists, that these children are not forgotten, is just restoring and empowering. So I thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Appreciate it.
So on that note, this next song is a song of defiance, a song of strength. It's a song on my album, by the way.